It looks like a wagon!
cried Milo excitedly.
It is a wagon. A carnival wagon.
Seconded Talk the watchdog, and that's exactly what it was, parked at the side of the road and looking quite deserted. On its side, in enormous white letters, was the inscription,
Cacophonous A Discord.
while below, in slightly smaller black letters, was Doctor of Dissonance.
Perhaps if someone's at home, he might tell us how far we have to go.
He knocked and suddenly leaped back in fright, for there was a terrible crash. The wagon door flew open, and from the dark interior a hoarse voice inquired,
Have you ever heard a whole set of dishes drop from the ceiling onto a hard stone floor? Well, have you?
Not until just now.
Ha! I thought not. Have you ever heard an ant wearing fur slippers walk across a thick wool carpet? Well, don't just stand there in the cold. Come in, come in. It's lucky you happened by. None of you looks well.
The faint glow of a ceiling lamp dimly illuminated the wagon as they cautiously stepped inside. Talk first, eager to defend against all dangers, Milo next, frightened but curious, and the humbug last, ready at any moment to run for his life.
That's right. Now have a look at you. Very bad, very bad. A serious case.
The dusty wagon was lined with shelves full of curious boxes and jars of a kind found in old apothecary shops. It looked as though it hadn't been swept out in years. Bits and pieces of equipment lay strewn all over the floor, and at the rear was a heavy wooden table covered with books, bottles, and bric-a-brac.
Have you ever heard a blindfolded octopus unwrap a cellophane-covered bathtub?
Sitting at the table, busily mixing and measuring, was the man who had invited them in. He was wearing a long white coat with a stethoscope around his neck and a small round mirror attached to his forehead, and the only really noticeable things about him were his tiny mustache and his enormous ears, each of which was as large as his head.
Are you a doctor?
I am Cacophonous A Discord, Doctor of Dissonance.
What does the A stand for?
Stammered the humbug, too frightened to move.
As loud as possible. Just as I suspected. You're suffering from a severe lack of noise.
He began to jump around the wagon, snatching bottles from the shelves until he had a large assortment in various colors and sizes collected at one end of the table. All were neatly labeled. Loud cries, soft cries, bangs, bongs, smashes, crashes, swishes, swooshes, snaps and crackles, whistles and gongs, squeaks, squawks, and miscellaneous uproar. After pouring a little of each into a large glass beaker, he stirred the mixture thoroughly with a wooden spoon, watching intently as it smoked and steamed and boiled and bubbled.
Be ready in just a moment.
Milo had never seen such an unpleasant-looking medicine and wasn't at all anxious to try any.
Just what kind of doctor are you?
Well, you might say I'm a specialist. I specialize in noise, all kinds, from the loudest to the softest, and from the slightly annoying to the terribly unpleasant. For instance, have you ever heard a square-wheeled steamroller ride over a street full of hard-boiled eggs?
But who would want all those terrible noises?
Everybody does. They're very popular today. Why, I'm kept so busy I can hardly fill the orders for noise pills, racket lotion, clamor salve, and hubbub tonic. That's all people seem to want these days. But business wasn't always so good. Years ago, everyone wanted pleasant sounds. And except for a few orders during wars and earthquakes, things were very bad. But then the big cities were built, and there was a great need for honking horns, screeching trains, clanging bells, deafening shouts, piercing shrieks, gurgling drains, and all the rest of those wonderfully unpleasant sounds we use so much of today. Without them, you would be very unhappy, so I make sure that they get as much as they want. Why, if you take a little of my medicine every day, you'll never have to hear a beautiful sound again. Here, try some.
If it's all the same to you, I'd rather not.
I don't want to be cured of beautiful sounds.
Besides, there's no such illness as lack of noise.
Of course not. That's what makes it so difficult to cure. I only treat illnesses that don't exist. That way, if I can't cure them, there's no harm done. Just one of the precautions of the trade. Very well. If you want to go all through life suffering from a noise deficiency, I'll give it all to the Din for his lunch.